Greetings, everybody out there in the Livelong community. I am so excited today. In fact, I'm feeling very healthy. Just the psycho rays coming into my brain as I get to interview this fantastic doctor, academic, forecaster, a woman totally into the science of longevity. And what I found very interesting, Dr. Hillary Lynn, who's with me today, is also a longevity doctor, which is a new thing, which we're going to talk about. So I'm going to call you Doc. That's what I call my docs. Okay, Doc? Is that cool, or should I call
That's
you Hillary?
cool. Feel
Okay.
Dr. Hillary, all great. Nice to be here with you.
My doctor at NYU, when I call him Doc, he says, "You can call me by my first name, Brad," but I don't know why I find it's kind of like in the old days, I was raised in a Catholic kind of background, and the doctor came to our house and the priest came to our house, and I could never call a priest by his first name, and I could never call a doctor by his first name. So I kind of hung up on that past of you are special people, you're at a higher level, but also you're a profession that's changing radically, which we want to get into. But let me just start with something. I took my handful of blueberries this morning because one of our guests and speakers, Michael Greger, recommends that every morning. Is there any truth to that having any benefit to me being healthy and living long?
Well, I'll go out and say is it's likely not doing you any harm, assuming you're getting not a pesticide filled handful of blueberries, which is tough these days, by the way.
Um,
So there's a lot of dangers there. And this reminds me, I had a conversation with a couple where the husband, he's a VC also in the Bay Area with you, and very into all of these new health and longevity products, especially bars that have your macros down to the percentage. And so his argument with his wife was his wife would be eating an apple, and then he would be like, "Oh, but you're just getting all this fructose. Like you should get a balanced, essentially, bite or snack by it with this bar." And I was like, I think your wife is maybe in the right here because our
mm.
our bodies have evolved to process whole foods, such as the handful of blueberries and the apples, a lot better than ultra processed, no matter how healthy the health bar is, foods. So the long story short is the handful of blueberries probably better than worse, but watch out for pesticides.
Yeah. Is the word organic
What does
in
it
the
mean?
shelves of the grocery store, is that enough to, if it says organic, are we, is the promise that you're really getting healthy food without the pest? Is that true, or
It's
is that
so tough.
bullshit marketing by the food companies?
I think I do buy organic for, what it's worth. It's better than nothing is how I view it. However, if you look into it, there's so many flaws with organic certification. They only audit once every so often, very infrequently, and there's almost no third-party testing. I recently became aware of a collective group essentially where they actually get to know the farmers, and
Mm.
then they have a list of like, oh, good eggs or like good dairy and so forth. So you can dig into it quite a bit, but you're not going to get that immediately through just organic certification labels. And the
That's
reason,
like that's
yeah.
like back in my day, long before you were born, Hillary, the food co-ops, the hippie food co-ops where you had to volunteer and the farmers came, and it was all this that we're talking about now without being wrapped in plastic and,
Hmm.
hauled off the truck and brought into the food co-op. And it's funny that you mentioned that may be
Yes.
coming back. The other thing I was wondering, I'm in a city right now, San Francisco, which is very high on the awareness around food quality, and the quality of the food is great because the farmers up in Sonoma bring down their food. But it's also a city that's a city of the future, from Waymo cars, self-driving cars, to having all your food delivered, kind of like New York City, but a modern version of that. Everyone has their food delivered. And I was thinking the other day, to not be able to see the food in the market, where is it coming from? And, that's another question, like, because that seems to be part of our future in terms of how we're getting food. So I guess these are things we have to be aware of, right?
Absolutely. And I live in New York City, but I have lived in the Bay. I lived there for over a decade as well. So I call both sort of homes. And I agree with you. I think it's something we have to adapt to. There are some folks who are like, no, I must get it straight from the farmer's market. And I'm like, I don't know. Even the farmer's market are a little bit, sketchy these days. You don't know like what is actually being done to the products. You don't actually know these farmers actually in most cases when I'm showing up at these farmers markets in the middle of Manhattan. And so I think it's a new reality that we have to accept. There has to be innovations in audits and understanding the quality and also in helping these farmers because part of the big problem is that you can't protect your farms from like surrounding runoff water that has all sorts of toxins in it. You can't compete against, the pests that are coming through. So there's a lot of problems that are actually more on the regulatory level. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing as somebody who looks at all of the interventions across longevity health. When people ask me, what is the most effective thing that could happen? I'm like, sadly, it's kind of at the global level and at the regulatory level that we can make the biggest leaps for people's lifespans and health spans.
And that would seem to lead one to believe that what uh, Kennedy is doing in the new administration, or the old administration, I guess new administration. Um, I'm sure there's some damage that will be done, and there's a lot of debate and controversy about his actions. But I don't recall any time in my life where someone's confronted the food industry like he has. And
Mhm.
it seems like it's not incremental little baby steps. There's significant changes. I remember when Bloomberg tried to do this in New York with soda, that didn't go over very well when you
Oh,
mess with
yeah.
people's quality of life, their quality of life as they knew it and understood it. Is that a good sign what Kennedy's up to with all
Yes, I
these
I
efforts?
think for better or worse, I am, I have a lot of thoughts for, what's going on in overall, but let's stick to the positives for now. And I absolutely agree that we need a lot of disruption in not only what the food industry is up to, but also environmental contaminants. That's something that, he built his career around even before his current job. And I think that's a major effort that requires government level, actually international level efforts. Just briefly note, we all hear about microplastics, and now all the we're all running around being like, oh, how can I filter my water and wear only linen and, throw away all my Tupperware? And I'm like, that's good, do that. But realistically, we're not going to get rid of 99% of the plastics into our bodies until the world simply stops producing so many plastic goods. And that is going
Interesting.
on, yeah, at the international talks level. So,
Yeah, that's well said. I live in France part of the time, and there's no food in plastic. I mean, there is in some markets, but it's all in these open fruit and vegetable markets. And they've had rules and laws and policies and regulations like we're talking about there forever. They're like they really are fierce when it comes to protecting the public. As I say, laws in the public interest, not special interests. And it's refreshing to see some of that challenged here in this country. I think that's a good sign. Let me ask you this. I once went when I got into this, and I'm a newbie, a couple years, and my own journey is how this media company launched. My own, like, how do I live longer and a healthier life? And in that pursuit, said, hey, we need a media company here that's objective, not conflicted, not selling products, and that's what we're embarking on. But in that journey, I tried everything.
mhm.
Hillary, I did everything, full body scans, this test, that test, every imaginable. But one thing I did is I made an appointment with a longevity doctor who someone told me I should get stem cells for my shoulder. And so I go see this longevity doctor, and it's just like if I was going to your office or my doctor's, it looked like a medical office.
Yeah.
It looked, felt, like it. And I filled out forms like you do. You have to fill out forms. I did all this. There was a receptionist. There was people were dressed like doctors and nurses. I get in and I'm with this young man who is very nice and telling about stem cells, and it's $10,000 and I just suddenly it hit me. It sounds stupid, but I didn't know. I said, "Are you a medical doctor?" And he had this long-winded explanation about being not a medical doctor, but a da da da
Answer
da.
should just be a one-word answer, right?
Yeah, and I have a Chinese healer, so I'm into all that,
Yeah.
but I also have medical doctors. So when I hear longevity doctors, and I think they're sprouting up around the country, and there's quite a debate about should they be regulated, who are they, what they are. But you are a legitimate longevity doctor, meaning you're a medical doctor who is now, is it right? You're a longevity doctor? And
I went through all the boring, horrible, medical system training. I spent a long time, in academic medicine. I was at Stanford for a long time, and briefly at Columbia, and I did regular, traditional, high level medicine. And I think it's worthwhile for the consumer, the patient, to know. And you can make your choice of who you see. And I think you develop your own intuition for who your team is going to be. But I tend to agree with you that if you are going to get a treatment that requires a certain level of knowledge, you want that person to be clinically trained. And right now, for whatever it's worth, the most rigorous clinical training is in that more traditional MD, DO training background. And so something like stem cells, I absolutely would say is on the edge of like, this is cutting edge science, is very clinical. You want to understand the human physiology at a deep level and have experience with it. For many other things, I'm like, yeah, I totally get that if you are getting body work done, you don't need an MD to do that. You probably want someone who is very skilled with their hands. And so it just depends on what you're looking for. And one note I will say, because longevity medicine is not an official certification like a board certification. Like I'm board certified in internal medicine, and hardly any patient knows what that even means. But that's like an official board certification. Longevity medicine is a label we adopt, and we in this phase where we're all figuring out what longevity medicine is, we're kind of adopting different definitions. For me, it's a version of highly proactive, preventative, root cause medicine that thinks long term. For some of these folks, it's the cutting edge biohacking, but they kind of are very high risk. They kind of throw caution to the wind. And so you have to understand what you're getting into when you meet with a so-called longevity doctor.
yeah, so you're more focused, it made this too simple, but prevention, right?
Mhm.
Um, when he wanted to inject me with stem cell, it was like like what do you call it, elective surgery. It was like it felt the same. And the funny ending to that story is I kind of walked out and said, I don't think I'll do that right now. And I went to have coffee and I sat next to, who would have known, one of the leading what do you call the people that do surgery on like
The
shoulders?
orthopedic surgeon. Yeah, like an orthopedic surgeon.
Orthopedic surgeon. It turned
Mhm.
out he was renowned just by accident.
Yeah.
The stars were aligned, and his specialty was ballet dancers, like
Oh.
the Mets in New York and the famous ballet dancers. So he really knew what he was talking about. I tend to meet everybody, and so I struck up a conversation, and I proceeded to tell him I got into this longevity thing, and I was just at a longevity doctor, whatever that is, and he wanted to shoot stem cells. And he kind of looked at me, he goes, I wouldn't do that, Bradley. He goes, your shoulder is a very complicated piece of machinery, muscles and bones. And, at your age, he goes, and stem cell is this kind of a random
Mm.
shotgun approach. And it's more complicated than that, should be thought through more carefully. And I guess that's a question for you. I'm hearing more and more about personalization of
Yeah.
longevity in medicine, where one size does not fit all. One supplement is not for everyone to digest. Um, would Is this a breakthrough in your world that you see happening due to
Yeah.
technology or science, where I maybe shouldn't take magnesium with my heart meds, as opposed to everyone should take magnesium?
I love that because I so believe in that N of one practice of medicine and in lifestyle. I think that's where all of these social media wars come up, where people are arguing like, oh, carnivore diet healed all of my hurting joints. And then other people are like, you need the colors of the rainbow in 30 grams of fiber a day. And the reality is, it's not a one size fit all. It's far from it. It's a one size fits you today, and you probably have to change that tomorrow. And it's very difficult for our average, let's say, person and client, consumer, patient to understand that, because no one is going through medical school typically just to understand their own health. And the human body is an incredibly complicated organism. Doctors and scientists still don't fully understand it. We don't understand still what it feels like 99% of what's going on in the body. And it doesn't mean that we aren't educated. We certainly are. It's just that it's a big, mysterious scientific discovery field still. And so I
Isn't
think
that
it,
it? Go ahead, finish it. Yeah.
oh no, so it's like a rather bold claim for anybody to say everyone should do X, because there's no such thing.
And I guess that's because we're in the formative early stages of this, where everyone's into it. And
Mhm.
then all these things are being thrown out as solutions. What is scary is some prominent people. We call it the longevity bros, these guys that are celebrities, and they they're well watched, they have good podcasts, they're great speakers. We've had many of them, but they kind of, when they say something, it's like from the mount. It's like Tony Robbins saying it for, lifestyle or something. And we find that a little scary, actually, as journalists. Like, wait a second, who is this person? And, what are they doing? I don't know. We're just skeptical, I guess, without
Yes.
being negative.
Yes, I think that's the right approach to take any serious decision in your life. I kind of liken it to, we all know this is a funny topic to analogize to, but we all know that finding your life partner is a difficult thing. And as hard as everyone has tried through pop magazines and, their friends telling them everything, no one has figured out the magical secret. And medicine is a very similar, in a similar way.
Interesting.
Yeah, we understand all the mechanisms, maybe at the root cause we can explain what this drug is doing at a cellular level, but we can't explain to you whole heart, like, okay, if you just do this formula, you're going to live till 120.
I love that comparison. So it's like a supplement makes you sick. The bad partner.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
rid of the supplement, get rid of the partner.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then sometimes, I've been married and divorced and now happily partnered for, a long time. And so sometimes the solution is you have to like divorce a person. And same way, sometimes the best thing for your health is you have to literally change your entire lifestyle, which is hard for people to accept.
Yeah, that's so well put. I did something the other day. I tried one of these new apps that's AI driven called Doctronic. And what I found fantastic about it is my doctor at NYU is a very good doctor, and he'll give me as much time as I need, but I know he's on a clock. And I have a daughter-in-law who's entering a one of these health providers, and they're all given a clock, like you have 15 minutes per patient. And I'm with this AI Doctronic, and it reminded me of an old doctor I had in Greenwich Village on Fifth Avenue and Ninth Street. He'd been around forever. He was an amazing doctor. He just retired. But he would sit there with a yellow notepad and a pen, look me in the eye, and we'd have this back and forth. Well, where exactly does it hurt? How do you feel? And then he even goes to the point, I'm married to this really amazing woman, Yaz, who's a Moroccan woman. And what does Yaz say? And he was so probing. And I haven't had a doctoring experience like that until I was on this AI doctor. Doctronic is the name of it. And I'm not promoting them, but it went on and on, the conversation. I was prompting it. It's asking me what medications. I said, oh, heart meds and baby aspirin. It said, well, specifically what? When do you take them during the day? How does it feel? What does it look like? And it replicated that old school doctoring experience that I had with my childhood doctor and this wonderful doctor from the Greenwich Village. And what do you think of all that?
I
the AI doctor. I mean, is this the future? I mean, they have time for you. They have as much time as you do.
Exactly. I actually love this revolution. A lot of doctors and health leaders are fearful because it feels like technology is encroaching in our turf. But I feel like healthcare has been broken for decades now. We all know that. And to your point, doctors don't like having 5 minutes a patient either. I have practiced as a primary care doctor and as an oncologist, and it's heartbreaking, particularly in cancer medicine. When you have 40, 50 patients a day, they're literally double booked just so you can do a very quick check-in, be like, how's it going? Let's change your treatment plan. You barely have time to talk to them about what's going on in their lives. You often, and this is an incredible thing that it happens, but it's out of necessity. You have to refer the patient to another doctor to get their spiritual, go to palliative care or go to psychology. And it just feels like the entire system's completely broken. And so,
Really is, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And
It's
so,
it's really it's not saving us. It's almost like you're in a spiral and not a death trap, but it is dysfunctional.
yes, absolutely. So I love the revolution of AI, whatever you want to call it, either doctoring or autonomous healthcare, as I prefer, because yes, it's easy to call an AI doctor, but it's not exactly because
You call it what? Autonomous, what? I like it.
autonomous healthcare.
That
So
is a great I love that word, that
yeah,
combination of words.
yeah. And the reason I say that is because I think doctor is a very loaded term for a role that a person plays. Back to your childhood experience of that doctor who was able to come to your home and know you and your family. That's what we all wanted to be when we went to med school. It just never was a reality for the most recent generations. And we want to go back to that. And I actually think autonomous healthcare or, more and more autonomous healthcare will enable the human doctors to get back to those human relationships. So, long story short, I think it's a fascinating field. My own company and many others are establishing versions of this.
Now tell us about that because you've been I love, you're like me. I'm a journalist, but I'm an entrepreneur and I always got to do both. I always have this impulse to start a company, but I write every day and I'm a journalist. You're a doctor every day. And then you've started some companies. Tell us about those now, what you're working on and how that is a trend that maybe is going to help what we just talked about, get rid of sick care and get into healthcare.
Yes. So summarizing it, because it's been such a long time of experience, is I experienced, let's call it three major roles. One is as a traditional physician, meaning I see patients one-on-one. And second is as a digital health entrepreneur. So I know what it's like to build up a tech and clinical team to run a tech-enabled say startup. And then the third is as a content creator. So not a journalist like yourself necessarily, but I create a lot of educational content for platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn and so forth. And what that has taught me is that there's many ways to assist the patient at the end of that journey. The one-on-one doctoring takes the absolute most time. And frankly, for me, and every doctor finds their bounds. For me, I just want to do that for a select few number of people. We all have enough brain capacity for only so much. And so for me, I've chosen fewer is better. And for everything else, I use that for my scale and impact. So for the content, I realized I could reach thousands, even hundreds of thousands, millions of viewers and educate in a very, detailed way about a particular topic. And that is so powerful. But then I saw folks trying to, sign on for my click, and I'm like, I simply can't accept more patients. I don't have the time and capacity. And so that led me to my most recent build, which is currently still pre-launch CareCore, but it's the idea that we
What
can
is it again,
it's
Dr. CareCore?
CareCore. Mhm.
CareCore.
Yes. The
Gotcha.
idea is that we're putting the human back in the center of care and providing a near autonomous experience for all of the logistics of healthcare. So running that telehealth platform before, so I've had a prior VC-backed startup in the mental health space, and we were also very tech forward, but AI wasn't as big back then. I recognize that one of the main problems is technology is simply assisting humans, which is good, but you're limited, you're bottlenecked by the human. So you need to make fully autonomous as much as possible for you to actually break through all of these efficiency constraints and to free the doctor as well as the patient from all of these headaches, like the paperwork, the documentation, and so forth. So that's essentially what we're doing with my
So the
latest.
AI or the machinery, the technology takes care of all of that.
Mhm.
So the doctor and the patient can focus on
Exactly,
healthcare.
exactly. Hmm.
That would be such a break. Again, I don't want to keep alluding to France, but in France, there's no such thing as health insurance.
Yeah,
And
all covered.
it's a wonderful thing because you walk into a waiting room, and there's really no one there. And then the doctor greets you. There's no administrator, no one asking for your insurance, no one asking you to fill out a form, no one weighing you. And by the way, they don't weigh you there because a doctor told me once that, and that's all insurance driven. We think people know they're overweight, so it's respect for our patients, and we don't need to remind them in front of the whole room full of people what you weigh. And I say that because I'm all overweight. I love that they don't do that. But then you go into the doctor's office, and three-quarters of the tests that you referred to here, the doctor does right in his or her office. Uh,
Yeah.
and so it breaks down all that administrative bureaucratic and alienating, You're standing in front of a whole room full of people, and they go, "Oh, your insurance isn't updated. You're embarrassed. You're ridiculed. You feel bad about yourself. You don't have your card. Well, go get it." I mean, what a horrible, removing the money part of it would be
Yeah.
a real breakthrough, I think, because too
Sometimes
much of
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I sometimes joke that I became a doctor simply so I could just take care of my own health care. 'Cause it was
well, that's true. It's a stressful job for you all, on top
Yeah.
of just the normal stress, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you. America, for what it's worth, we've made so many breakthroughs because we are a hyper-capitalist country. And it's been amazing for the progress of the nation. However, it is really broken down certain areas, and healthcare is one of them. Because to your point, we have reached maturity for the industry. So the stakeholders that are in charge, the payers, the insurance companies, some of the larger health systems, although honestly, they're losing out to the payers like PBM, so forth. These guys are so established and embedded in the day-to-day workings of how anything goes that it's going to take really major and disruptive reform from above, most likely, to really change this experience.
Well, you make a really great point. I don't mean to put down innovation in the USA because
Mhm.
we are the innovators. Like where I am right now, within 200 yards is where 90% of the AI is being created. It's not being created in France by any means. They have a lot of good stuff there, but they got a lot of bad stuff.
And
And
their AI scientists come over here. It
yeah,
looks.
of course. They moved to San Francisco. So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's that if we can ever find that right mix, and in healthcare, it's just a whole insurance thing. It bogs it all down. Let me ask you this we hear in help explain. We used to hear concierge medicine. We heard of telemedicine. We've heard of functional health, right? You seem to have combined it all into your new one. Where is that all put together in a way that, and
Yes.
I don't
Uh-huh.
know what the model, I just had a conversation with some people at Amazon about Amazon Health and what they're trying to do. It seems like we're all headed in the same general direction. Am I right or wrong, or do all these have a space at the table?
I have two answers for that. Yes, your instinct is right. And the fact that you talk to so many leaders probably has given you that great intuition. So, one thing I'll say is that longevity medicine is simply just a different direction to cut healthcare. And I say that because concierge versus insurer paid insurance backed healthcare is like one way to cut medicine. Telemedicine versus in-person medicine is another way to cut it. Longevity medicine is a perspective of the practice of medicine. So anybody can adopt longevity medicine for better or worse. It does mean that there are some grifters who also adopt it. So it's not a clean certificate of good medicine. It is simply the perspective that we care more about long-term health rather than simply taking care of, your UTI or your cough today. And that means all sorts of things to different practitioners and businesses. So that's where you have to be careful as a consumer. The second point I'll just say towards because I'm with like you spoke to Amazon. Amazon is making big moves, and people might not see it as longevity, but it is part of the same movement, which is we're all trying to create a version of healthcare that people actually want. So
Mm.
that is by nature more consumer oriented. It is more longevity and wellness oriented, and it's more digital in nature. So, yes, to all of the above of what you said, and that's what leads to a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I recently coined a phrase. Everyone has a different name for artificial intelligence. It's personalization. I think Mark Zuckerberg said it's self-development. Others, it's efficient and productivity. But mine is what I call joyful intelligence. Like, let's have artificial intelligence improve on the things that are necessary and important in life and make them more joyful. Wouldn't it be fantastic to make the experience with the medical establishment and the experts more joyful?
Yeah.
Um, that I think should be our goal instead of this painful, arduous, difficult process. Let me ask you this to kind of wrap up. We're out of time. Is the What is your counsel? I'm going to go through some age groups here. If you're 35, and should you be worried about longevity? Um, and then let's go 50 to 60, 60 to 70. And then let's talk about me, people with a lot of things going wrong as we get older. Just pick any generation you want or go through three or four and tell us
Yeah.
how we should be thinking ourselves personally about longevity as a doctor and a longevity doctor.
Yeah. It turns out, according to the latest research, and this literally just came out, we have definitively decided through cellular evidence that aging begins the moment you are sexually mature. And so that is, 18, 20, something around those ages. And so you're starting to age. That's why we all feel like the peak of our lives in our 20s and we can go out and have late nights. But even then, I would say you want to consider your longevity. You have a lot of buffer when you're in your 20s because you're in peak health. So you could probably stand some alcohol. You could probably stand some, bad decisions and maybe even a full decade like we do in medicine of really bad sleep. But then you get into your late 20s. I wouldn't even say that mid 30s mark. Things are really starting to fall apart already. And we see that most clearly. So I allude to female fertility a lot because it's one of the clearest and fastest changing metrics that we can look at. So it's not exactly longevity, but it's a clear sign of aging. And we know that the peak of fertility is in the early 20s. And so by the late 20s, things are already starting to decline. It's the same case for everybody in terms of aging. Mid 30s, things start taking a sharper decline. 40s, a very sharp decline. 50s is in the latest research shown to be the absolute like people really feel it around 50, and it's not just because of menopause, it's just the accumulation of all these things. So what I'm saying is there's this unfortunate sort of rapid decline as you go up and up in age numbers wise. So I think everybody should be thinking about longevity because it is simply long-term health thinking. And the way I would think is you have greater buffer to take certain health risks and certain traumas to your body in your 20s. In your 30s, you're going to start wanting to think hard about whether you should be drinking alcohol so much or, if you should be sacrificing your sleep. And in your 40s, this is when both males and females start to notice a decline in hormonal health. And so you're going to want to start amping up, everything from exercise to nutrition to, maybe hormone replacement even. And 50, certainly everything just goes 0 to 100. You're going to want to, if it were up to me, I would say everyone should be a full-time health nut in their 50s and beyond. So
Well, I've become that. In fact, I worried I'm a hypochondriac. I used to not worry about my health at all until something got broken, and now I'm obsessed by it to the
Right.
point of a little insanity. In fact, we had a great newsletter this week by our esteemed editor, Erin Hunter, a young, really great, inquisitive woman, about whether this longevity was, we're getting obsessed by it and it's affecting us, and we're becoming, in effect, hypochondriac. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I want to thank you so much. You are really a special person who is super smart and devoted to something that we care a lot about, and I know our listeners do. And I love how you cut through it and how you explain it. And you have great bedside manners or podcast manners here in terms of your ability to communicate. So we wish you really good luck, and we want to have you back, and we want to promote everything you're doing that makes sense. And keep us in the loop, and you will see you around the bend in health heaven.
Thank you so much, Brad. This is really fun.
Okay, take care.
Take care.